Hi, this is Jeff Tannen with Decision to Buy. This is our second video in this series of three on how to reach your financial goals. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the process, reiterate some of the key points, and then kind of get into much more detail. Again, the easy part is coming up with the goal. The challenge, as with everything in life, is a lot of hard work and definition in order to get there. All right, so we reiterate where we started. A goal is a want, a hope, and a dream. And achieving a goal is actually a process. As much as we like to be the lone rangers and independent providers of great wealth and surprises and fun stuff, the reality is every good salesperson who knows what they're doing and follows a plan is infinitely more successful than those that do not. So let's keep in mind the process is the key thing here when it comes to. Okay, so the vision and mission of the organizations is a key thing within the organization, and those are always managed by the chief executives or the CEOs or you, the entrepreneur. Every organization needs a vision and a mission. Every organization needs goals. Every individual needs goals. Every organization, every individual needs a strategy or a thought process in a global sense in order to understand and to grasp and embrace the vision and mission and the goals associated with it. In order to accomplish goals, we have to have tactics that allow us to work effectively, prioritize the actions that we know are necessary, and therefore to be able to build action plans for success. Because again, we're looking for greatness. We're not looking for just plain old mediocre. We want to kill it. So the best way to do that is to really work the process. The number one thing that I always define over and over and over and over, and I will say it probably till I'm blue in the face, is you need to define what the buyer's decision to buy process is. In other words, how do they buy? What do they do? What actions do they take? What things do they come up with that are maybe objections or more due diligence? Or do they have to redefine what your solution is? Do they grasp the solution? Do we know kind of what the key benchmarks are within the sales process so we know to either move on to the next step or not? And then we need to define how those actions apply to us being able to accomplish our goals. So it's a build up from the bottom. Again, we get the goals. The next thing we need to do is we need to discern those steps that are important in our lives that we need to be able to build an execution. It's great to have a plan, but if the roadmap doesn't tell you where you're going, and like this sign in South Africa when they decided to change the signs, but rather than take them down, we'll just leave those signs up. One of the reasons I like this sign is over here on the right, we may have the signs, but over here on the right it says far, which tells me that we're not very close to a plan. So let's keep in mind, we are trying to follow a plan. The simplest way of building your plan is understanding what the value is of each sale and then taking that down to the next level by dividing it by the number of steps that it's going to take and how repetitive or how many different types of steps that are going to be involved. We also understand, like in a funnel in the sales process, not every single person is going to be sold. Now, I know that seems strange. Some of you just want to disagree with that and want to resist that scenario. But the reality is, once you're done selling your friends, your families, and all the little clones of the people you already did business with, you have to broaden out, and you're not going to be able to sell every single person because you're not going to be able to solve every problem for the people that you incur or run into. So the key for us is to spend as minimal time as there is with the people who have no interest and maximize all our efforts, actions, and resources. So in all of this, and I use this in my presentations and I use it in a lot of seminars that I do, is I give away calculators or people pull out calculators. And as I do my presentation, I have them calculate what the value of that particular conversation is or the things that I'm implementing throughout the training or the seminar. And I have them calculate what the value of that is. Now, why do I do that? Because I want to maintain a value proposition with my audience. So this also applies to however or whatever steps you go through with your client or your buyer. What is each action worth? Why do I take this action? Why do I take it over and over or repeat it till I get it right? is because without taking the steps, without following the process, without the validation that the value is there with your buyer, you're never going to get any farther. So if you're doing actions and things that don't have any value or worth, okay, so this is a little more complex, but you get the idea. This is a step-by-step guide to reach prospects, qualify leads, and close deals. Again, this is a very complex type of scenario, but it's used in the CRM. It's a Salesforce diagram. The point is this: there are multiple steps. These are the steps that cause action. You take a step. If there's an action involved, you want a result, you want a benchmark, you want to be able to move forward. So what you're really doing in putting your action plans together are discerning and dissecting what the value propositions are, what the steps that are involved, and how the value is provided to the buyer in order to cause action to move them through those sales steps or that process to be able to have a successful sale. Again, that becomes a win-win situation when the client gets what they. So what we're saying here is you need a roadmap. You need to where the stops are on the road. You need to be able to look across the vista and see what's going on, but at the same time, you still have to follow the road. You have to stay on the right side of the road. You have to follow the road signs. You got to have a map to where the heck you're going. This is what we build with this. We take the decision to buy steps, we build the benchmarks in place, and we start to build the actions that are part and critical to the success. So rather than a complex Salesforce scenario, let's just keep it real simple. We know that we need to talk to new prospects, whether face-to-face on the phone or through the internet, on an ongoing basis because we need to be able to have enough people who want to do business with us for us to make an income. That's what we're after. So if we build a model, for instance, a typical sales plan, there may be X amount of first calls in order to generate a first call or a follow-up. There may be 10 follow-up calls from the next meetings and people we've dealt with and generate proposals. Do all the steps. Again, these are actions. They take time. They take planning. They take tools. And they take resources, just like I mentioned in the first video. The key component is being able to discern and map out what those steps are, what the values are. Now we're going to get into a little more detail in the final video where it comes to being able to plan it, but the goal is this. If I look at my calendar, and again, this is just a sample, I'm just trying to show a sample. What I want to be able to look at is if I have these meetings, what are the other things I'm going to do in between? Or are there set schedules that I may have? I may find that telephone calls between 8 and 9 are optimum for my business. They may be optimum between noon and 1. Lunches may be optimum. Evenings may be optimum. Any types of scenarios that match up with how your client buys, how best to interact with them, how to deliver value to them, and how to keep that excitement and value generating forward so they buy something is a critical factor in here. So the busier the schedule, the better if those actions are all focused based on the decision to buy. So action plans have basically 5 or 6 different components. We'll just cover a couple of them here. It's always sales driven based on the decision to buy that your particular client utilizes in order to buy your products and services. It takes a daily discipline. That discipline means that you have to have priorities on those actions in order to accomplish your goal. That means you have to use resources and planning and time and effort and other people and skill sets very effectively in order to be successful. So in the next video called Action Takes Time, we're going to get in a little bit more detail on how. So we demonstrate a very busy schedule and demonstrate a very, very tight sort of approach to being able to develop our action plans, our benchmarks, and everything else. But man plans and God laughs. And that's an old Yiddish proverb. And the point is this: the better you plan, the better the outcome. The less you plan, the less there's going to be an outcome. Is everything always going to be perfect? Do we always get what we want? Heck no.